Hello, and welcome to Chess Improvement and Sub Game Review. With me, Master Dennis Boros. Hope you are ready to improve. Hope you're ready to get better with every split second you have here. Hello there, chat. Hello, je me passe le pseudos. Hello, SLW. Hope you have a good day or night wherever you're at. Hey Edgar Saint. Edgar Saint is saying, hello Danish in chat. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Yes, sir, I am having right that. In fact, let's jump into one of the first questions that was asked on our Discord. So this was sent by Cruzo. Cruzo asked, just so get ready. This is going to be a little bit longer than usual. Sometimes, maybe it's more typical on my level, especially when I'm with black pieces. My opponent pushes pawns so hard into my territory, I get cramped. These openings are either called advanced or advanced pawn variations, etc. But sometimes they just do push too early as a mistake. There must be some general strategy idea how to defend, counterattack, escape from getting cramped. If so, it's the idea of make a lesson about this. It's just coming for you. How to deal with when enemy advancing to your side with his pawns, talking about taking away space, that is. I collected a few ideas and he listed them. Alright, so Cruzo, I actually brought you some ideas and I'm going to show you a way and a reason why you should fight back. Oftentimes, space is more important than you think it is. In my early chess career, I was struggling whether I want more space or want less space. In the beginning of my career, it wasn't such a big deal, but the stronger I grew, I had to respect space a bit more. In fact, I played the hedgehog time after time with varying degree of success, but then I just got destroyed and demolished. I think I played it in a Czech Republic somewhere. And I told my coach I just couldn't move. I didn't have space. So, here's the game I wanted to first show. This game between Korchnoi and Gideon Barca. Barca is actually known for something specific. Can anybody tell me why Gideon Barca is so famous? Anybody tell me about that? Shortly we'll start looking at this game. Hello Alex, how are you doing? Yep, he's famous for the Reti-Barca system. So after Reti, his hyper-modern system didn't really pick up that much. But after Barca, it became increasingly more popular. I'm going to show you what happened there and why it kind of got named after him. So, something I've got to do a little bit of a fix there. Give me a second. Good. So Gideon Barca is famous for devising and kind of making Reti's system very good. So he went for this g3, bishop, g2, and castle systems, and the hit that's been a big rage these days, the c4 Slav slash Grunfeld pawn sacrifice, was devised mostly by Gideon Barca. So for no other reason than being the sole inventor, is named after Barca Gideon. Hello people, hello Schinken Gurdenbrot. That's why the knight f3 g3 is called the Reti-Barca system, or reversed. In any case, he is named, and he was among the top 20 players of his time. Very strong player. Anyways, back to the game. Barca is this time black, facing Viktor Korchnoi, the legend. So Crusoe mentioned about the topic of space. And when we talk about space, one thing is very important. It's something that you have to tread carefully with. c4, e6, d4, check. It's a tricky line. Knight c3. These days everybody plays bishop d2 or knight d2. The reason they would put the knight to d2 and not c3, because let's say knight f6, a3. After this move takes, queen takes d2, there will be no doubled pawns, which would be to a disadvantage for white. Knight c3, c5, d5, d6. Now white already has a bigger center. And provided with the knowledge that we have, black would have to do something. If you're playing with black here, what would you do? A, would you close up the center, or would you look for a way to blow it open? These are, by the way, important questions because that will kind of decide the direction of the game. Hannisberg is saying take the knight to weaken the d5 square. In fact, taking the knight might be a very interesting move, not because it weakens the d5 square, but because it creates doubled pawns for white, which could become potential target. On the other hand, there's no knight on c6 and a5, so it's very hard to come close to it. But that's kind of the strategic fight this whole line is revolving around, whether you can undermine the doubled c pawns. But bishop takes c3 is definitely an interesting idea. Interesting idea by Hannisberger, trying to create weaknesses. But that's not the only way to go. So as we can see, white definitely has a big center. It's a pawn center, so it's not that easy to attack with pieces. And if we use a bit of logic there, if we can't really attack pawns with pieces, then how else can we attack it? In your opinion, Edgar Saint is saying e5 or f5. How does that undermine Viktor Korchnoi's center? So if you go d6, e5, f5, how does that deal with the center tension? It really doesn't. It really doesn't. So best is to go b5 and try to undermine it that way. If takes, knight f6, and suddenly the spin will allow compensation. And with white having all of his pieces still on the back rank, means that black will have good counterplay. Some username, I guess. Thank you for the follow. So b5 definitely is the way to go to undermine this, and then once the c4 supporting pawn is gone, e takes d5 gains in strength. Mumurai, thank you for the follow. Hello, Chess Azio. Now d6 is not necessarily a bad move. However, when you go e5, you release the tension. Let's say e4, e5, And can we really dispute the fact that white has a huge center? Not really. And the only thing I can tell you is if you don't distract or try to undermine that center, that will have consequences. Terrible consequences. As we shall see in the game. So let's see what happens when you just accept your fate and just sit. So you play c5 and e5. Bishop d3, knight e2, e5. So here we're going to stop just for a second. Typical position. White has the space advantage and black is a bit cramped. The question is, how can white use the fact that black has no active plans? Play on the king side. Play on the queen side. Both. So some username is saying f4. Okay. So first off, nobody's castled yet, right? Both kings are in the center. Can we guess where black is going to castle? Can we guess where white is going to castle? So where is black going to castle most likely? Out of 10, 9% of the time. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that would happen. King side, of course, right, Jim Walker? What about white? Where will white castle? Or is there a should in white's case? Is there a should? Should white castle a certain direction? The reason black is likely to castle short is because if you go long, oftentimes you run into a3, b4, and your king is just too loose. The d6 pawn is too weak, and they're just too easy to attack you on that side of the board. So more likely than not, black is going to castle short. Mornaki is saying useless for white to castle at this point. I understand, but what could be the benefit of castling long, for example? It is called the Old Benoni, yes, King Marcher. Well, it's a better version because the bishop is out on b4 instead of being landlocked on e7. Play on the king side one. You can keep the rook on h1 and go h4, h5. Okay, why would you go h4, h5? What's your idea? Well, you're not stopping your opponent from castling, but you can actually create targets. You can push it up maybe to h6 and create mating ideas. For example, here, castle h5, I'll play a move, h6 here. And once you break it open, and this diagonal opens up, queen g7 mates will become a real threat. So h4, h5, h6, I think in this position is not as accurate in, let's say, in King's Indian structures. However, even here it makes a lot of sense because it works and helps you in long terms. Kasper is saying, play on the queen side is a double edge for me. Black will have problems coordinating their pieces, but black will counterplay on the king side maybe. Some username is saying, I'd rather play h3, g4, h4, h5. Why would you do that? Can you explain that? So we've got the suggestion of roaming up the pawn to h6, piercing into black's position, or go h3, g4. Why would you go h3, g4? And then we'll continue and see what Korchnoi did. So let's say h3, castles g4. This actually has an added benefit and is typical in the King's Indian way of playing in the King's Indian, which was a big weapon of none other than the great Garry Kasparov. Now, you can stop your opponent from playing g6. In fact, you don't want to, because whenever they play g6, you can storm the castle. You can go bishop h6 and set up some threats. But actually what g4 achieves is stopping any f5 liberating breaks. And even though I told you that that's not as big of a deal, once black decides to play e5, that's the only source of counterplay. And just because you play g4 doesn't mean you can't play f4 later. It means it's just going to be riskier because your king gets a little bit weaker and there'll be some targets on g4 and h3. But it does not mean that you can't play for f4 later on. Anyways, here's the link for the Discord if you have game to review or have a general question. So, g4 is actually a pretty good plan, cramping down black. And this is one of those things that they play more. But let's see what Korchnoi actually did. So he castled, takes, and if you ask me, this wasn't necessarily a bad decision by Barca based on just chess principles. Because he exchanged the bishop for a knight, which wouldn't be heralded and wouldn't be great. However, in this case, this is a decent choice. Why? Because it's a close position where the knights are worth more than the bishops. Castles g3. A mysterious little move. Anybody tell me why g3 was played? Preparing f4. But couldn't we just play f4 immediately? Couldn't we just go f4 right now? Isn't this possible? Why not just f4 right away? Also, I do have to tell you, g3 does weaken the white squares, so it does have some downside to it. Yet, Korchnoi decided to play g3 anyways. So what happens if we play f4? And sometimes this is what titled and grandmasters do. They actually look at options. So they say, hey, f4, what's going on if I play f4 here? That's our first thought, right? We want to open it up for the bishops. But there's a downside to this one, and that's why Korchnoi played g3 instead. So he does not always just calculate, he also follows a certain pattern or logic when he plays a game of chess. I mean, he already passed away, sadly, but that's the pattern that he used. It's a close position. I don't think black is ready to play queen h4. And in this case, this was a little bit different because the queen would be bothering the king. This is a completely different position. You haven't exposed your king too much. And indeed, that is the answer. So if you play f4 here, takes, you did get your bishop activated. You have a target on d6. However, you're giving unnecessary counterplay for Barca. So once you played f4, e takes, bishop takes f4, suddenly there's an e5 square. Correct, King Marcher. Black would get an important square. So queen e7 is a strong move, not only defending the d6 square, also preparing to get the knight to e5. Suddenly, black gets the e5 square. And black has some ample counter chances, because a knight on e5 will be quite strong. That's why he played g3, so once he plays f4, ef, he can take with the pawn. So knight e8, king h1, f6, f4. So he's going passive, going full turtle. But if takes, you go gf, of course, and no longer can you put anything on e5. Not just that, you get an open file to play on, while black is kind of just silently suffering. So normally you just want to castle, bloc roi. Knight f8 is not such a great move. It can work, and it does work in these Benoni structures, but we're mostly trying to understand how does space advantage work and how to deal with it in best scenario cases. And this is kind of the worst scenario that black can get. No counterplay. There's no play. If you ever play f5, you just open up my bishops. This is strategically lost. And that's kind of the issue with these cramped up positions or Che Benonis, that you don't have any counterplay at all. And it really doesn't, like, yes, this knight on d7 is clumsy, bloc roi, you're correct. But there's just no better squares for these guys because there's not enough space. It would love to go to e5 for that very reason. Anyways, he played rook f7, queen e2, knight f8, bishop d2. So again, let's stop here. This is critical position number 2. Who's dominating here? Obviously it is white. We are in firm control, but you've got to decide which side to play on. What would be the benefit of playing on the queen side or the queen or the king side? So queen side and king side, that's what I mean here. So we can go ahead, go f5, and start rolling. Or we could play on the queen side. How would that play look like on the queen side? What would be our main target? So there's time for dreaming, Vornaki, and there's time for actual moves. Ruskov, thank you for the follow. So it's true we want to get a passer at some point, but you've got to come up with a plan to achieve it. So the big problem is this c5 pawn kind of holding back white. How can we undermine that one? Theo is saying rule of two weaknesses, queenside. So how can you use that, Theo? So one of the important things that I'm trying to ask here is to come up with a plan. I already gave you a plan for the king side. You've got to come up with a plan for the other side. Yes, correct. A3 and B4. A3 and B4. That goes and undermines that C5 pawn. However, by in itself, it's not too special. Let's say King H8, A3, G6, B4. I can go Knight D7. In this moment, you've got to come up with an important idea. A very important idea. Should we take on C5? And if not, why not? Why not H4? Because once you decide to embark on a plan, you want to follow through. Now, Super Grandmasters and Alakine can play on both sides. Us mere mortals got to follow through the plans, and maybe then you can change. The question is if black actually fended off our attack or not. Edgar Saint is saying do not capture on c5 because it helps only black to develop his pieces. B22 C3 Sicilian is saying Knight A3 Bishop E3 so he can't take the piece. So one of the things that they capture on c5, but also you give them something you never want to give. The c5 square. You never want to give the c5 square. So if you take knight takes c5, and even though these positions are decent-ish for white, this is ideal for black. With a knight on c5, Barca would be super happy. Black is happy with the c5 outpost. So it's important that you remember that you should play around it. And just as mentioned by B22, C3 Sicilian, you should go knight A4, bishop E3, and then take on C5. good move pointed out by b22 c3 Sicilian. And now you don't have the luxury of getting an outpost. Even if they play b6, you take, and if knight takes, you capture that knight, let's say dc, and then you can start rolling with a4, a5, and if anyone's enjoying this position, it's white. And also there's a target on e5 because that d6 pawn has moved. So this is not the only way to go, but it's important to do plans correctly. And I understand we've got many ways to go and many places to put our guys. However, once you embark on a plan, make sure you can take on c5. Even if they take on c5, we achieved something, a big goal, and the goal of not letting that knight get active on c5. And then we can go rook b1 and use the fact that we had an open b file for the rook. Some username is saying a problem we weaker players have is we can't slowly make progress, so I would never come up with this just because it slowly improves and I want to win on the spot. Well, yes, that's why we're trying to improve our games here. And that's what we're trying to do. So now you would get the b file, and then you would have a maneuver of queen e1, bishop a5, smoking out the queen. And slowly but surely, black will run out of moves. So I do understand you don't see an entry square b22 c3, but there's another thing and something that we should learn in chess. It's not always about you. It's sometimes about moves that your opponent can or cannot make. Black can barely move. That bishop is stuck there forever. It has to guard the b7 square, and once it moves, I can't infiltrate. So oftentimes, it's mostly about the fact that your opponent just can't make a move. That's why you're better here. So, alright, bishop d2, queen e7, rook e1. Fortunately, it's going for a different direction. Rook b8, a3, rook f2. No rush. Also stepping away from this bishop h3 ideas. Rook b7, knight d1. Not really showing his intentions just yet. Hello, Petrosians. Procrastinado, thank you for the follow. So because black can't never take on f4, because e5 will come and the e5 square is under control, black is doomed to waiting. And white can actually mix it up with b4 or go for rook g1, g4, g5 later on. Queen d8, knight e3, rook e7, f5. So again, we come to a critical phase. Based on the moves of Korchnoi, where will white play? Which side will white play on? Kingside, of course. He's going for the kingside maneuver. So wants to play g4, g5. But that's actually not that simple. If you go g4, g5, black can still capture you. So we do need a bit of preparation. How can be efficient and be sure that g4 will work? And this is more of a strategic play, not tactical. So you've got to devise a plan. Obviously, the goal is to get the pawn to g5. Yep, h4 first. You want to go h4, g4, and then g5. So if takes, we have h takes g5 back. Theo says rook g1, king f1, h4. That's a very nice little plan. I like it. And h4, g4, g5. Interesting plans. g1, king g2, f1, h4, g4, and g5. Or queen h5, g4, rook f3. So there are many plans here. Just like in the King's Indian, you see plenty of plans. Let's say a6. Here, you can play it this way, caveman style. However, the knight is defending the h7 square, and that's why it doesn't really work. The other plan was rook g1, king g2, king f1, h4, g4, g5, and I assume Theo played the king to f1, so it's safer, and he also gets the open h file. SLW has a weird question. Does it make sense to walk the king to c2? Black is not ready, and black isn't doing anything anyway, and it may end up being useful. Well, yeah, however, it can run into b5 breaks. So these king maneuvers actually make sense, but I'm not 100% sure it's pitch perfect. Okay, king g2, king f1. Yeah, so these are good plans. And rook b7, h4. Korchnoi is being very direct. He's going for this g4, g5 instead. Bishop d7, g4, h6. Again, if g5, plenty of pieces are attacking that square. How can we make sure that that square is protected by the white pieces? No, all these plans showed by you guys were perfectly legitimate. And that's one of the things that people misunderstand. There's no such a thing as a grandmaster move. There's such a thing as a good move and a terrible move. So if your plan is sound or your move is sound, then it is objectively sound. It doesn't matter if you're an IM, a GM, an FM, or you just started chess. What matters is the quality of the move. How can we support our break on g5? Give me more ideas, people. Give me more ideas. Also, if you're a sub, do feel free to post your questions on Discord. And by any ways, join our Discord if you want to be part of the Chess Veep channel. Rook g1, rook g2, g5. So one of the plans, and I really like Alex's plan of rerouting this knight to f3, opening up this bishop, and optimizing the placement of this knight. The only thing I don't like about rook g1 and rook g2 is the placement of the king. Admittedly, the king might get into danger once the h-file opens up, and it will. Because black is a smart grandmaster. After g5, probably is going to take, play g6, and try to fire down the h-file. That is the issue. And in fact, that's why I think Alex's move of knight f1, knight h2, knight f3 made a lot of sense. The e3 knight wasn't really doing that much anymore, so just getting the knight to f3 is a good plan. Oh, that plan, procrastinado. Let's see, rook g1, g5, knight g4. Yeah, that's very daring. But that's one of those things that grandmasters don't do. They don't take unnecessary risks. Now, I'm pretty sure it works. So your idea of sacrificing the pawn works. But Korchnoi, seeing that he has an amazing position, is not going for that one. He says, hey, I'm better. There's no need to risk. You could go rook g1, g5 when you're losing on the queen side and you're playing the king's Indian. But not here. Hello, Alexander Rustamov. Hello there. Rook h2, knight h7. Again, stopping that idea. Rook g1, king f8, knight g2. So knight f1, knight h2, knight f3 is not the only way to try to break through. You can also maneuver the knight via knight g2, e1, f3. And that's what actually makes these positions exciting. The more you maneuver, the more space you have, that is, the more maneuvers you have that are legitimate. Queen b8, b4, king e7, knight e1. And in fact, you can see the combination of the two plays. He is stopping any b5 plays. If you do, then takes, and that pawn on c5 becomes a permanent weakness. In fact, b4 is the one that deserves the exclamation mark, not this one. However, still part of the plan, so I'll leave it. Anyways, the b4 move is more of a prevention of these ideas. No, of course g5 is dangerous for black, but I think Korchnoi didn't want to rush it. He can play g5 at any given moment. King e7, knight e1. And now you actually get this moment when you play on both sides of the board. So you're putting pressure on the queen side. You're also somewhat threatening to take on c5 in the future, not quite yet, because Barca is ready to pounce. But you're putting a little pressure here, and you're putting a little pressure there. And eventually, black is going to collapse, as you shall see. King d8, knight f3, preparing g5, king c8, g5. The correct timing. Now, I'm not saying g5 wouldn't work in any other cases and scenarios. However, Korchnoi didn't see a reason to be overtly aggressive and rush this idea. So he plays it after deliberate preparation. Fg takes, rook h8, king c7, bishop takes g5. And let's stop right here. Let's look for plans for black. When was this game played? This game, I think, was played in the 60s. Black's position is terrible, obviously. But let's suffer a little bit, because then you understand the plight of black. You're black, we're going to even switcheroo, find a plan for black. And that kind of pinpoints why you need more space in general. Any plans? What can black do? So let's just try to come up with a move. You want to take, okay, but I take back. So don't delay anything, Casper. I want a plan that you're fighting for. And also, don't copy the Grandmaster. That's cheating. You're good enough to come up with your own ideas. I trust in you. I trust in you. And in fact, this is one of those things that is a difference between very strong players and newcomers. Grandmasters have grit. They don't give up. They look for something even if it's not there. So one of the plans mentioned by Grandmaster Rustemov was Queen A8, Rook B8, and playing Knight F6. Now it's a miserable plan. Obviously, Black is completely hopelessly lost in this position. Just Queen H5 and you lose the Rook. However, if White does nothing, he'd still try to shuffle around a bit and try to wriggle his way out. Mind you, you could also try to go A6 and B5, try to open it up on the other side of the board. Amir Hossein Pass. Thank you for the follow. So, even in terrible positions, you can try to maximize your chances. And because you don't have any space left, that's why Black is so utterly hopelessly lost. Because you are left with two plans and they're all horrible. And here Barca played Knight F6, but was actually losing the queen and the game. So that is a big issue. White owns 3/4 of the board, right? Exactly. All right, so this was an example for the fact that White, if he gets the extra space, you're struggling. So how do you deal with the situation when you don't have enough space? And for that, we've got this game by Shirov and Kramnik. So e4, c6, d4, d5, e5. And the question was related to what to do when your opponent has more space. And the answer is counterattack. Again, got a question. When should we counterattack? Hello, Perron. Strike back. Fight later. So we've got less space here as Black. So if we don't do anything, we're just going to be smashed. just as happened in the Korchnoi game. Should we go something something trade, something something counterplay, or counterattack on the sides? Any thoughts? Now, I'm not showing this position like this is winning for black or anything, but it is a dilemma that black is facing. White already kind of infiltrated the 5th rank, so we've got to deal with this cramped position immediately. In this position, says Kasralad, I wait for the opportunity to attack the center, and after knight c3 I play and push c5. So there's two things that black can do, actually. You can go bishop f5, knight f3, e6, get the bishop out, play e6, bishop e2, and let's say play c5, castles, knight c6, put pressure on d4. So you're trying to undermine the center and try to play against white's extended advanced variation. Or you can strike immediately to undermine this e5 pawn, which we're going to see in this game. So Chet said, and the poll said, we want to strike back. Exactly. So you either try with c5 or first develop and then do a delayed strike back. But if you don't do it, you don't get enough counterplay for that extra space that e5 gives for white. c5, that's why Kramnik actually plays c5 here immediately. This is, by the way, a sideline. Bishop f5 is known to be the main line. dc, e6, bishop f4 takes. Now, yes, white has this e5 pawn. However, black will get very good counterplay. Bishop d3, knight c6, knight f3. And again, here comes the big question. How can we undermine this e5 pawn yet again? It varies. It varies. Alexander, it varies. Is this theory? I feel like I already prefer black. Well, maybe, but the concepts still hold true, Tipsitan. Yeah, you can go knight e7, knight g6. But the most direct way to combat this e5 pawn, which is kind of cramping black's position, you go f6, so you'll get good play on the f file later on. Also, your knight will get a good square on f6. Well, yeah, you guys really want to take that pawn on b2, I get it. But then again, you're not dealing with the fact that your pieces are kind of passive. You want to deal with that immediately, and so does Kramnik. Knight e2 takes knight f6. And isn't this knight much happier on f6 than on e7? Yes, it is. In fact, if white would play something funky like knight b3, that would immediately be punished. Let's punish this. Boom. King takes f2, knight g4 check, and then you win the pawn back. So if you play your cards right, and as mentioned correctly, you do have to be careful because of this French structure. Yes, f6 is not for the faint-hearted. However, based on the principles of fighting back against advanced variations, it makes a lot of sense, as we shall see in this game. Queen e2, castles, castles, a5. Knight b3. So he's trying to go and attack on the king side, the queen side, trying to pierce through on that square. Good old hanging pawn center, right, King Marcher. Knight b3, bishop d6, king b1, takes, a4, a3. And again, as you've seen this before, or we talked about this in the earlier examples, we create these holes and mating patterns that provide some good chances. Queen a5, immediately pointing out that, hey, if I can get my queen to c3, I'm just going to be winning. Roctivero, thank you for the follow. And already you can tell that even though white has a grip on e5, he has to deal with these mating ideas, and with the knight being much more active on f6 than on e7, he has more than enough counterplay here. c4, trying to over-defend it, but at the cost of weakening the king. You can tell that this is not an ideal move. You don't want to push pawns in front of your king. dc, knight c4, queen c7. Black has somewhat of a weak pawn on e6 and a terrible bishop at it. However, the king on b1 is exposed, and that is a form of compensation. You do not have this move of bishop b5 because you drop a piece, knight e5, queen e5, and after queen takes b5, you're just suffering. So therefore, Shirov plays c4 instead, knight d5. Again, playing actively and courageously. Playing against the king and signaling a good old fork down. Queen d2, knight b4. What is knight b4 preparing? What's the plan of knight b4? Obviously b5. So if white does something nonsensical, b5 by Kramnik, and knight c3 is just going to win the exchange with a raging attack. So notice that Kramnik keeps Shirov busy as much as possible. Knight e2, rook f2. You had to deal with either b5 or ideas on the other side. Actually, not the other side, but b5 was actually annoying with this knight c3 threat. So Shirov decided to give up the pawn. Bishop e4, b5. Now b5, even though is threatening knight c3, on a second thought, it does help white to develop that bishop. Black to develop that bishop. Queen d4, rook e2, bc, takes, bc, bishop a6. A very, very nice little intermezzo. So Shirov again tried to do his brand of going aggressive. However, there's this very nice move of bishop a6, stopping any kind of CDs, because after bishop e2, white is just going to be down there with a piece. Rook c1, knight f4, rook d2, e5, and this is now a decisive advantage. The black king is a little bit loose, but objectively, this is just winning. Queen e3, bishop c4, queen f7, knight d3. He's actually going for the endgame. Not sure if this was needed, but Kramnik goes for it anyways. Queen b3 takes, king f7, and there's a big difference. A big difference between the play and the position of the pieces. Can you tell me why is this completely winning for black? Dear viewers, dear chat. Remember, we are in endgame phase. White always has to worry about the a3 pawn, correct? And what does black have that white does not? A good king. Yes, a good king, while this king on a1 is just horrendous. And it is kind of stuck there because we're always going to promote the a pawn. Rook here, a2, just making sure that king never moves. Rook here, b4, e4, and the pawn is running down. e3, king f6, and it's very hard to defend down a king. That's why you need the activity of that badass king. B there, h5. h5 is an important move, so this king can cross over. Here, king f4, rook b3, check. But that doesn't really help anything, takes. And black resigned because he's going to lose the pawn and the e pawn is promoting. Perfection. All right, so this was the two games I wanted to show how to deal with advanced pawns. And now I'm going to look through your games. All right. Let's see. As Kasper is here, let's start with his game. Okay. Knight f3, knight c6, g3. Again, we're having this good old Barca line. Nice. e5, d3, and b6 is a terrible move by Shagnik. Why? Because this bishop is just getting ready to put pressure over there. b6, bishop g2, bishop b7. And talking about that, is there a better move than castling here? Kasper Vlad. Definitely there is, and that's knight takes e5. So whenever we play these basic moves of the Reti/Barca, you should be cognizant of the fact that you will always have tricks. So when your opponent plays with b6, bishop b7, always look out. There might be some tactics that you can use. And here you have knight takes e5, and if takes, bishop b7. Your bishop will never be trapped because the rook is hanging. So if c6, there's bishop takes a8, and you're just winning here. Just clean and simple. Castles, missing that. Knight f6, e4. It feels like white is playing all the casual moves, missing the shot of taking on e5. But chess is kind of an ever-changing game. Bishop c5, knight c3, castle, queen e2. Now queen e2 is not ideal, and we'll see why that happens. Sure, thank you for dropping by. Thank you for dropping by. So queen e2 is not ideal. You normally want to challenge this bishop and go for either a knight d5 or a d4 break. Queen e2 is not ideal. d5, takes, takes, knight takes e5. And I would give full credit for knight takes e5 if it not a bad move. Black to move and play. So knight takes e5 on the surface is brilliant. However, it just doesn't work. So whenever you're looking for tactics, always pinpoint the weak pieces, or loose pieces mostly. Where does white have loose pieces? Yep, exactly. There's a queen loose on e2. You want to use that. Therefore, there's this beautiful sacrifice of takes knight d4 check, and suddenly the hunter gets hunted. You go here and you might survive, but you're still mostly the one struggling, instead of being up a pawn and happy. So that's why in chess you should take the first opportunity that you get, or you can get, and win the pawn immediately. Go knight takes e5. Queen e2, and the third and fourth time was already dodgy, so here knight takes e5 wasn't as good as it was earlier on. Takes, 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 rook b8, bishop g2, g6. Now you're actually doing okay. You're up a pawn, and it's a good position. Extra pawn, bishop pair. This is near winning. g6, rook e1, rook e8, bishop f4 here. On the other hand, once you get the advantage, you need not rush. So how can we play slow and steady chess? And by slow and steady meaning you want to improve your position without giving extra chances for black. So if you could choose between king f1 or doubling up on the e file, which one would you play? You can only choose one. d4 was played, Boskop. There's a good reason I'm asking if you can do better. Yeah, you should double up. Yeah, rook e2 is a very good move. There's no knight f3 check because you take, and then this rook is defended, and then you just double. And I think just doubling up would have been much better, Kasper. Just much better. Because in that case, you exchange even more pieces and you have no weaknesses at all. You had no reason to play d4 that early. Knight c4, takes, takes. Exchanging is good. You want to exchange pieces. c3, b3. Defending all your extra pawns, good. a3 wasn't good. Never ever put pawns onto squares that you can get attacked. You don't want that. a3, a5, takes, takes, ba, ba, d5. But luckily for you, all of your pieces are so well placed that there's no way you're not missing out on this win. All of you guys are just ideal, and this knight is a bit clumsy on a3. Hello, Arsen. c2, e7, c8, b7. Here takes a4, a3, b8, and d7 wins. So in fact, not a bad game, but you could have messed up a win because of inattention. So if you would have paid attention earlier on and tried to win it, like try to win a pawn in the beginning, probably it would have been much easier. And after that, you were kind of rushing it. Just start developing your pieces slowly, like the doubling up idea you had there, I think was very good. You just mentioned in chat. So if anything, a slower, steadier game would suit you. Cots was saying, I actually missed the same pawn grabbing tactic an earlier game where I'd also have won a rook. Yeah, so you need to practice tactics and be a bit more vigilant about it. And that's why people do so many tactics, because you look through these ideas and then it'll click. The less time you spend on tactics, it'll click later, as it did click for you much later in the game, and it was already bad. That's why it's important that you're cognizant of these opportunities earlier on. All right, so I'm going to watch this game of Overwatch and more. Knight c3, knight f6, bishop d3. So this one's played between Stefan with white. Bishop d3 is a weird little move, and it just doesn't feel right, because you block the view of this bishop on c1, which actually wants to get out. Normally you want to play e5 and d4, again, grab some space and have this advanced structure. Bishop d3, then you're blocking in this bishop, and even though you can get a bit of argument for that bishop d3 move, it's just very clumsy looking. So it's not an idea you want to follow. e6, castle, de, knight e4. Now, any Bronstein fan would take with this bishop. In fact, taking with the bishop would make sense here, especially for the reason, if black takes on e4, knight takes e4, you get the knights in a close position. So white would be better, because black is still kind of struggling with those terrible two bishops on c8 and f8. So bishop e4 would make sense. Also, it would allow d4 finally. Knight e4. Now taking is a big mistake on part of black. Should have played knight d7 and such. And let's say bishop e7 and just castle quickly. Because after knight takes e4, which is definitely a mistake, and I'm be rude enough to give it a question mark, so it's a bad move, white is so happy to be able to play d4 in the future. Takes, bishop d6, and knight g5 is just a crude blunder. Queen g5 would be winning. And that's why you should take the center first and then castle. Because now, if you would play knight g5 and be adventurous, that knight would be defended. So that's why these small little details matter so much. If you just follow the principles of castling, getting pawns in the center or pieces, even moves such as knight g5 won't be losing. But if you disregard them, they just lose. As this should have been losing to queen takes g5, because you didn't play d4. Castles, takes, check, queen h5, g6 takes. So far so good. Takes. Bishop f7. That's good. Taking, going full Pac-Man on black. Black has almost made it. King g5. And in fact, here's mate on the board. But d3 check actually does not help that idea, because the king will run away through king e7 and king d7. So how can we stop that king from running back? From hiding or just running back? White obviously is very close to winning. Okay? Now, queen g6 check. And you really got to hide. You're gonna get mated. Here, queen h5 is checkmate. So, for a good reason, people say, whenever you're a newcomer, and also, yes, exactly, as pointed out, this runs into d4 mate, and that runs to queen h5. If you're very close to checkmating, keep checking. Eventually, you'll find mate. But probably that was direction. However, this one does help this king to run away. King f6. Bishop e6 makes no sense. And that's the other thing. The bishop is worth 3 pawns. You don't want to give up your bishop for something worth only 1 pawn. Not a good deal. Also, you could check here and take the queen. Check. Here, king e7. Bishop g5, you won the queen. Okay. Now this should be completely winning, because you're up a queen and that's normally a win. Here, takes. We're going to look at the major points here. Rook e1, knight a6. Hooray, you took that bishop. Good. King c7. Check. But again, one thing is to have your rooks on the board. 2 is to actually activate them. Actually, you should double up on the e file. And that's what you need to do. All right, let's skim through some parts. Here, giving up so many things. So mostly what you really need to learn is the value of the pieces. Doing tactics and the value of the pieces. So let's just leave it off around here. The queen is worth a lot. You don't want to lose it for anything, ever. It's just worth too much. Too much. You don't want to lose it. And also, you want to respect your rooks and get them into the play. That's all I'm going to say to this game. You had a nice attack, but again, what's important, and that's the thing that I can tell you in the beginning, you will not blunder if you play d4. Because then, all of these adventurous moves work. Because your bishop will be aggressive and active. And also never forget to bring your rooks on the open files. That's what I'm saying there. Alright, last but not least, this is a game by Edgar Saint. d6, e4. So we're going to have like an old Benoni. d5, rook e8. So rook e8 is not the ideal move here. e6 is better. You want to immediately undermine the center. Just kind of the topic that we've been looking through in general. You want to undermine it. You want to make sure that white isn't comfortable with that extra space. That's why you play e6 right now. Rook e8 is not tragic, but e6 is just much better. And e5 is a mistake. Once white builds the center, you should hold to it. The longer you hold to it, the more likely you're going to get into the position that we've seen between Korchnoi and Barca. Black will run out of ideas. Braden, hello there. Also shout out to Braden. It's always scary because of the d6 pawn though. Well, the King's Indian slash Benoni is known to be a sharp opening. You don't want to give up your d6 pawn, don't play this opening. But I'll show you why this doesn't really matter. Let's say bishop f4. You can always go queen b6, hit that b2 pawn. Once you take that, this bishop becomes a monster. And after queen d2, you go knight c6. You don't care about that pawn. If they take, you can go rook d8, pin that queen, and get lively play on the d4 square. Let's say castles, immediately there's knight e8, and you're going to win some material back, and you'll get knight d4 in. So there's a lot of counterplay right there. No problems there, Edgar Saint. I'm just giving you ideas that you can follow. You shouldn't be scared of losing the d6 pawn. So e6 is a move that you should follow and play. Never worry about the d6 pawn. Nobody cares about the d6 pawn. We care about mate. Braden, we only care about mate. So, chess is an objective game, Braden. If it's good, then it's good. You're involving your feelings, which is not ideal. You don't want to involve your feelings with chess. If e6 is good, then it's good. It doesn't matter. Yes, you can fear it, but you're just kind of sapping your own energies away. Now I know you think that I'm talking from a high horse. No, I also have my fears. But I realized, hey, if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then I'll check it again tomorrow, what happened in that game, and come to a conclusion whether my fears were correct or not, and try to move on from those fears. So, as you might have heard from other places before, just do it. Just try it out. See if it works for you. And that's what matters. Rook e8, e5, and e5 is a mistake because white is kind of demolishing his own center. e5, de, knight e5. And again, what is black playing for in these Benoni structures? No, Braden, no. We're not playing for that. We're still in the opening phase. How can we go for the b2 pawn if we're just oceans away from that guy? We're still in the beginning phase. So the fight still revolves around the center, correct? And if the fight revolves around the center, what could be the ideal way to undermine this d5 c4 structure? Oh no, not long term, no. I'm meaning right now, Braden. You were scared, Edgar Saint. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. But you can't really play chess if you don't focus on the game and you focus on your opponent. You should focus on the game instead. E6. Very strong move. D6 doesn't really matter, that D pawn is no longer protected. You go knight D7 now, and then sooner or later you're going to notch up that pawn. So don't forget, opening phase, middle of the board. Doesn't matter who you're playing, Kasparov, Kramnik, Carlsen, Giri, Yu Yangyi, Jeffrey, Federer, Djokovic, Ljubicic, Nadal, Naomi Osaka. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who you're playing. You still have to fight for the center. So here e6 would have been very good. And d6 never really works. That's the thing I'm telling you from experience. Never works. Never works. And especially because this knight was awful on e5. There's not even castling because e takes and the knight is hanging on e5. So e6 would have been better. I mean, I do respect that fears Edgar Saint. I'm not saying I was playing 2670s and was awed by their strength. But once I started playing the position and not the opponent, my results improved. I was trying just to play what this position is aiming for. So here you're aiming for a central break. Anyways, knight d7 is not a bad move. Just d6 would have been much better. Knight d7 takes, castle, bishop f5. You can still go e6. But I like your bishop f5 move because you're activating a passive bishop. Also, you might threaten knight d4. Like here, knight d4. That bishop actually becomes very active, just like as Braden said. And now you can actually use that. So yep, in the long term, it does work. Hello, Saf. So bishop f5 is a nice move. Bishop d3 takes, b6. And again, maybe e6 is better. b6, bishop g5. Now, knight g4 is not an ideal maneuver in general. Knight g4, knight e5 you can do when white already committed with, let's say, f4. You go knight g4 and then you have some nice tricks on the king. You play knight g4 when you have targets on b2, but you don't have a target there right now. So if you play knight g4 here, it's kind of a jump into the dark. It doesn't help your cause. It just doesn't do it. h3, knight e5, and here your opponent made a big mistake dropping the c4 pawn. Should have gone queen e2 and defend that pawn over there. Queen e2. He played queen e3, knight c4, queen e2. And bishop c3 was a very nice move. Anybody tell me why bishop c3 is so strong now? Yeah, but what is the downfall of bishop takes c3? Why is bishop c3 such a dangerous move? I understand we have eyes and we see what Edgar Saint is trying to achieve. But bishop c3 is not your run-to-the-mill moves. It's a very strong one because in any other case, if you don't win the d5 pawn, you don't want to give up this bishop on g7, ever, period. Now it works here because Edgar Saint gets that pawn, gets a good knight, and he can block up this long diagonal with f6. If not for that, this would be a terrible move. So this move of bishop takes c3 is brilliant right here, right now, and would be a horrendous move anywhere else, any other time. That makes it such a good move. So good job, Edgar Saint. Bishop takes c3, bc, queen takes d5. The bishop is hanging. Black has a majestic knight. Bishop e3, rook d8, rook d1, queen e6. So now we're in phase 2. We're up some pawns. Our king is a little soft and drafty. So what are the couple of things you need to do when you're winning? I put quotation marks in winning because you haven't won the game yet. However, you're getting really close. Trade off pieces when up material. Correct, Braden. What about our king's safety? What can we do to make our majesty feel way more comfortable? So Braden, you answered question number 1. We've got question number 2. How can we make this king on g8 feel comfortable? Well, you can take. However, you could also try to, let's say, just close up the position this way. And this is a typical way of playing a position. Very good, Jim Volker. Yes, you don't have that dark squared bishop anymore, but it will have to blast through a wall of pawns. Building a wall of pawns. And just because in this case you can take on e3, that's an easy way and an easy solution. But sometimes you don't have that easy solution. Sometimes you've got to go for the tough one. Here, f6 keeps a very strong knight and also keeps this bishop away. And that's why I didn't really want to take on e3, because you've got a good piece on c4. Why give it up? Why give it up if you can retain it? In chess, apart from getting pawns, you also want to have better pieces than your opponent. If you exchange them off, that actually deteriorates your position. So knight e3 is not a bad move, but you gave up a good knight. It's still fine, but that's why I would say f6 could be better. Well, Braden, I'm just telling you this so you get another perspective. I'm not flexing here. I'm trying to show you that you don't necessarily have to exchange off everything in a good position. Rook d3. Rook takes d3 is nice now, because our rook is around the same value as this guy. Knight e5, queen b5, queen c6. Going for more exchanges. Very good. Queen b3. Now a5 doesn't make much sense, however. Braden's saying, no, I'm saying I have gaps in my knowledge and there's nothing wrong with that. I got to improve. We all got to improve. Yeah, sure. Hey, Bargash. So a5 is an okay move, but following the chess principles, what would be a much, much better move? So our knight is in the center. Check, we are happy about that. Our queen is ideally placed, lurking around the king, holding important squares. Is there anything else that we could improve on? Exactly, Fuzzy B. Rook d8. Get that rook on the file. Rooks belong to the file. Always. Always do. They always do. So a5 wasn't that good because it gave a chance for white to get the d file. Misses it, but after rook d8, this would be very close to winning already. a5, you suddenly give targets on b6. c4, and actually queen takes b6 would have been much stronger. Vampire Chicken, thank you for the raid. Thank you so much. Shout out to Vampire Chicken. Hope you had a fun stream. We're looking at this game, trying to improve on our chess. So here, rook d8 would have been better, just activating that rook. Just in general. Rook d8, but a5 was a mistake. Because now rook b1, and suddenly David has counterplay, which you wouldn't expect to happen. It's kind of painful. c4, this actually drops a pawn. So here's what you can do whenever you make a little inaccuracy. So a5 is an inaccuracy. Your opponent played rook b1. How can we stop the fire? Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, like knight d7 or rook b8, both. Maybe this is a little better, because if you go rook b8, you might just jump into the frying pan. But after knight d7, you defended that crucial weak pawn, and that could be defended. And now you're still up a pawn, happy, waiting for a better time. c4, that just gives up the pawn. And after queen b6, because white got very active pieces, there's a good chance that white would survive. Thank you for the cheers, Bargash. Appreciate it. Queen c2, b5. Phew. Got lucky there, Edgar Saint. Didn't take that pawn. Bishop d4, knight d3. The octopus is landing on d3, and no longer can that rook really find this open file nor that e1 square for its rook. So a5 was a bad move, Badster. So just about anything is better here. Like c4, knight d3 would be very good. But just if you follow chess principles, this rook is staring down this pawn, which it's not supposed to do. After rook d8, you're better. Now you can do the same thing that actually Edgar Saint does a bit later. Just going c4, knight d3. Yeah, that's a completely legitimate idea, Badster. Take care, Alex. a5, c4, b5, knight d3. In d2, f6, finally. Very strong move. Building a wall of pawns. And this is the only time it doesn't matter that you have a dark squared bishop and your opponent does not. There's a wall of pawns there. You can't break through there. It's just not going to work. Just not going to work. And that is the problem. Queen e3, king f7. Like this move over defending all of those pieces. However, maybe e5 would have been even better. Just making sure that d4 bishop will not cause any drama in this position. King f7, a4, b4. Yes, I like b4. You want to stick with your plan. Don't fall for your opponent's trickies. Our opponent wants rook b6 and start lurking around the king. So try to follow your own plans instead of falling into these tricks. So b4 is very nice. cb, ab, a5, queen a4, bishop b6, b3, queen f3, queen a2, here, here. And he lost on time. No! Why? Why? Why did you lose on time? No! That's terrible. It's terrible. No. So you've got to play faster. I have a feeling, Edgar Saint, that you really need to speed up. Once you get the advantage, you've got to risk it a little bit and play some subpar moves, but be faster. In fact, this happened in some Twitch championships recently, that speed oftentimes is much more important than accuracy. But talking about accuracy, you really should have kept your queen on c6. Once it moved to a2, that was the moment your opponent could get his queen to d5. Bilbo, thank you for the follow. So that's one of the things that you should have done there. It was a beautiful game. Really a beautiful game by you. Like, you played, like, apart from slight inaccuracies here and there, I think you played it well. Just keep sticking to your plans. And in fact, if you should have started pushing these pawns, I'm confident that you would have won the game. I think that would have been very good. In any case, thank you guys for watching. This was the game review session for today. Really hope all of you enjoyed this time over here at this channel. We looked through some very nice games, some dodgy ones, and we learned how to use extra space. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. You can check out this link because it's all here on our Lichess study. It's right there, so you can check that one out. And if you want to be part of this channel, you can also check us out on Facebook and Discord. And I'm going to link you that. And we're going to give this good old raid to Andrea Navrotescu. He's a very good upcoming player. So make sure to give her a warm hello and welcome. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll get better together with these ideas and we'll improve as players. With that, I'm out. Take care, guys, and have a good day. Bye-bye.